Tory newspaper Watan reported last week that inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, recently revisited the bombed-out nuclear processing plant near the Syrian city of Deir az-Zor. That's the facility destroyed by an Israeli airstrike in September 2007. This time, however, the inspectors found traces of highly processed plutonium. They say this discovery indicates that Syria's nuclear program was much further advanced than the IAEA had previously thought. Damascus has repeatedly denied claims that it was attempting to produce a nuclear weapon. When confronted with the evidence of enriched plutonium, the Syrians quickly tried to shift the focus and blame to Israel. They charge this is a clear example of international hypocrisy. After all, international bodies estimate that Israel possesses an arsenal of over 200 nuclear warheads. In an effort to evade the real question, Syria expressed outrage over the lack of international security and scrutiny of Israel's alleged nuclear facilities. Israel has long maintained an official policy of nuclear ambiguity. It refuses to either confirm or deny that it possesses nuclear weapons. You know, few people recognize the realities of the dilemma forced upon Israel. If Israel were to confirm that it possessed nuclear weapons, it would further fuel the already burgeoning nuclear arms race in the Middle East. But on the other hand, if Israel were to prove it does not possess nuclear weapons, it would immediately be attacked by the combined forces of the Arab world and annihilated. But nobody knows for sure except the Israelis themselves. Just as nobody knew for sure whether or not Saddam Hussein had nuclear weapons. Now this is where history comes full circle. In late 2002 and early 2003, there were credible reports of convoys of trucks heading out of Baghdad into eastern Syria. Israeli intelligence tracked them to the Deir az-Zor province in Syria. The reports were widely disparaged in the media at the time, but the fact is that 4 years later, that's exactly where Israel discovered and bombed a secret Syrian nuclear plant. On September 25th, 2006, the Kuwaiti newspaper Al Sayasa cited Egyptian intelligence sources that said Syria was developing a nuclear program near its border with Turkey. The newspaper reported that by mid-2006, it had reached the stage of medium activity. The Kuwaiti report specifically stated that the Syrian nuclear program was based on equipment and materials that the sons of the deposed Iraqi leader, Uday and Kuzai, transferred to Syria by using dozens of civilian trucks and trains before and after the U.S.-British invasion in March 2003. Alliances in the Middle East shift as easily as the desert sands. Syria's Ba'athist government was a natural ally for the Ba'athist government of Saddam Hussein. Saddam's secular Ba'athist state was a sworn enemy of Iran's Islamic Shiite Republic. Hezbollah is an invention of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. But since it exists solely to destroy Israel, it has a friend in Damascus. Hezbollah forms the bridge between Damascus and Tehran. Since all share the same goal, the destruction of Israel, this arrangement is built on the old Muslim proverb, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." The hatred of all Islam toward Israel has caused the serious factions that existed within Islam to unite under the common cause of destroying Israel. It is a case of a shared hatred exceeding the centuries-old animosities that the various Muslim factions have had for each other. The day after Thanksgiving, the governing board of the International Atomic Energy Agency voted 25-3 to censure Iran for its nuclear program and the deception surrounding it. The resolution warned of the consequences if Iran continues its nuclear program. The IAEA demanded that Iran immediately freeze construction of its newly discovered nuclear facilities and stop uranium enrichment. British Prime Minister Gordon Brown called the resolution the strongest and the most definitive statement yet made by the countries who are very worried about nuclear ambitions on the part of Iran. In response to the board action, Iran's parliament approved the construction of 10 new uranium enrichment facilities, with construction to begin immediately. In the same session, the parliament approved $20 million to be used to support armed Islamist and insurgents terrorist groups currently at war with the West. This parliamentary measure is separate from Iran's sponsorship of Hezbollah and Hamas in their war with Israel. It specifically targets the U.S. and the U.K. It also changes the equation in the West. Neither Washington nor London would now shed tears at an Israeli strike against Iran's nuclear facilities. Their main objection has been that such an attack might prompt an Iranian retaliatory response against the U.S. or British interest. But if Iran's planning to wage a proxy war against them anyway, then why not? But it's unlikely that Iran's leaders haven't thought this through. The Iranians pride themselves on their cleverness, often reminding the world that they invented the game of chess. Ordering the construction of 10 new uranium enrichment facilities raises the stakes considerably from Israel's perspective. And authorizing a proxy war against Washington and London leaves them with little reason to restrain Israel. It's as if the Iranians are inviting war. Yet Iran must know it cannot win. The mullahs must know that if it comes to war, the regime itself cannot survive. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad must understand that he is racing headlong towards his own destruction and that of his nation. That's why the West needs to understand why he is pushing such an action. Iran's president is a member of the Shiite sect known as the Twelvers. This isn't some tiny Islamic cult. The Twelvers are the largest prophetic sect within Shia Islam. They believe that the Quran prophesies the coming of the Islamic Messiah known as the Mahdi. The Mahdi is a kind of divine warlord who arrives just in time to lead the Islamic Ummah, or global Islamic community, to victory over all non-Muslims. Islam refers to non-Muslims as the Dar al-Harb, or the house of war. We need to take seriously the fact that Ahmadinejad believes he has been divinely appointed to start the war that will summon the advent of the Mahdi from his hiding place in the holy city of Qom. He believes that starting a global war is his divine destiny. You know, there are those in the West who believe that Ahmadinejad is just a lone nut. They're betting that he will be constrained by the sounder wisdom of the mullahs and the Ayatollah Khomeini. But what the West does not consider is that they are all Twelvers too. Folks, I'm thrilled to announce that we finally have finished the whole series on the book of the Gospel of John. And this is not your average teaching on the book of John. This is the best series I believe the Lord has ever spoken through me. It's 40 CDs that go through the Gospel of John in depth on a seminary level, but simple enough for even new believers to understand. We are going to give this for a gift of $115. That includes shipping and handling. So visit hallindsey.com or phone toll-free